Unspoken issues.
There's only two left. WildC.A.T.s #1 makes our list. You had it at #2. I had it at #3. And it's making second place on our list here. Let's go ahead and start talking about it. What are your thoughts on, this is WildC.A.T.s #1. You're picking it up off the shelf. The hype of Jim Lee. He's now got his own independent title.
Mm-hmm.
My goodness, what else can you ask for here? This hits shelves August 7th, 1992. WildC.A.T.s Covert Action Team's #1 hits the shelves, written by Brandon Choi, writer and penciler Jim Lee, inked by Scott Williams, lettered by Michael Heisler, and colored by Joe Rosas. The title of the first story is Resurrection Day.
Just, when I was getting these books together, I've got all the first issues. So I was going through my long boxes trying to pull out. I wanted to look at, I have some trades with some of these, but I wanted like the original issues to look through for this one. I don't have a WildC.A.T.s #1.
Really?
I have all the other 4 issues. I have 2, 3, and 4. And I have a WildC.A.T.s #1 3D.
Okay. All right. Yes, I know what you're talking about there.
So I've got the 3D version that I got a few years later. It was released in the 97, I think. I had the issue originally, and then I had the trade of it that came with issue #0, which I'll bring up as we talk about this. But then I had that period where I got out of comics. I've talked about it a million times. And when that happened, I actually had to get rid of all my comics, or at least the vast majority. I was able to keep just a handful, but I had to get rid of all my comics. And when I started my collection up again, I was able to re-buy most of the stuff, that I'd had before. But I never got another WildC.A.T.s #1, maybe because I got this 3D version and I thought I just didn't need the regular version.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what I'm referencing is my WildC.A.T.s 3D #1.
Okay. On our front cover here, let's start with Spartan. He seems to be the biggest figure out of the rest of everybody else here. Tell us about Spartan of the WildC.A.T.s.
So Spartan is the field leader, and he's an android who I believe he has his consciousness downloaded into a new body every time the previous one's destroyed. I'm not 100% sure if the original Spartan died and they uploaded his consciousness into like a computer, and that's what gets put into all of the new bodies. Something like that, I think is what's going on.
Tell me about Maul.
Maul is the resident bruiser. Everybody's got one. And he's a big purple guy with tusks coming out of his back. He has the ability to grow larger and larger and larger, but the larger he gets, the dumber he gets. So in his normal human form, if he wasn't large at all, he's like a brilliant scientist or whatever. But in his role as part of the WildC.A.T.s, he's kind of a dumb jock bruiser type.
All right, then we have Void over here on the right-hand side of the cover here. Tell us about Void.
Void looks kind of like a female Silver Surfer, but she's got, except for her face is exposed as like, a white lady instead of silver. Mm-hmm. And she's the most powerful probably of the group, has some kind of cosmic abilities, and she's kind of like an advisor to Lord Imp, who is like the head of the team, not the field leader, but like the actual... He's sort of the Professor X to Spartan.
The WildC.A.T.s.
Cyclops. Yeah.
Right. All right. Then we have Warblade.
Warblade is the Wolverine archetype of the team. We talked about Ripclaw earlier, and he's got a similar thing going, except he can make all sorts of different kind of blades out of his liquid metal style hands. And he's got a big green ponytail coming out the back of his silver scalp.
All right. And then we have Voodoo down here on the bottom right.
Voodoo, a sexy exotic dancer who new to the team. She has the ability to see the villains of the story, who are the Daemonites, alien creatures that can possess humans. She can see when a human's been possessed by a Daemonite, and she can exorcise them from the human hosts.
You already mentioned Lord Imp, Jacob Marlowe. So yeah, kind of like the de facto Professor X of the team. So then we'll talk about Zealot. Tell me about Zealot.
Zealot is a Coda warrior, and she's has a katana type sword, and she uses some other kind of bladed weapons. Doesn't really use guns. She uses more martial arts. She's got kind of a short white hair, kind of scantily clad, but still has some armor on her, and red face paint on, kind of like some stripes on her cheeks and a dot on her forehead. But she's kind of the most badass warrior of the group.
Right, for sure. And then Cole Cash, the grifter. What about Cole Cash?
Yeah, probably the most popular Wildcat character, if for no other reason than he has had his own solo series several times. But yeah, he's a he's a gunman, sort of not really a Punisher type. He's more of like a Nick Fury, like a younger Nick Fury type.
I like that.
He's got a red bandana mask that he wears.
Love that.
Trench
Love
coat,
that look.
like open hair, flowing. So real 90s look to him. So, he's close to my heart.
Yeah, he's definitely pretty cool.
He's a former government operative. I think he was with Team 7, which is one of the Wildstorm. Yeah, I think Deathblow was part of that. Backlash. Some of those characters were all part of Team 7 in their younger days, and Cole Cash was one of them. And now Zealot has taken him under her wing and trained him in some of her warrior ways and whatnot.
Yeah, there's definitely a bond between those two. As the story progresses throughout the series, you can see that they've obviously known each other for a while. And that's mentioned actually here in this first issue. This story, it begins kind of strange. There's a lot of time jumps. So we start out first in 1980. So there's a couple of researchers who find a mysterious orb and encounter a fading female figure who tells them not to touch it. And then she disappears. She looks familiar. She looks like somebody that's on the front of this comic book. Then in the near future of August 1992, a couple of men are assessing an explosion where two rogue covert action teams fought and leveled some city blocks. The same female figure reappears and then fades away again. Now, in the present of 1990, they say it's the present, but let's just follow me here. In 1990, a man by the name of Jacob Marlowe is found by the female that we were talking about that keeps disappearing, whose name is Void, and she explains that he was once Lord Imp, champion of mankind. He takes her hand and then awakens in 1992. Now a successful businessman with Void by his side, who tells Jacob Marlowe, Lord Imp, of a vision she has of an orb that an enemy uses against her and threatens the future. They check on the team that they have put together to fight the evil that is the Cabal. Spartan, the leader, Warblade, and Maul are all part of the team at this moment. Underwater, the Cabal, there's like a submarine underwater. So the Cabal, this evil team called the Cabal, meets, and they're led by Hellspawn. And they're seeking a third gifted one. They're trying to find somebody else out there that's... it felt like they're trying to find somebody before the Wildcats get to them. Before Jacob Marlowe and his team get to him. So they're talking to a seeker by the name of Providence, and she sees where a couple more of these gifted ones could be. Then we switch to Cole Cash. Grifter who's heading to a strip joint to find a being of power there who turns out to be Voodoo. She's a dancer. Hellspawn's forces, though, arrive at the same time. So it sounds like they were both Lord Imp's people and Hellspawn's people all show up at the same time. But Hellspawn's forces arrive to take Voodoo as well, and they make their move. Cash dons his mask, even though he was waiting on Zealot, who hasn't showed up yet. Cash is able to get to Voodoo, but then is surrounded until Void teleports Spartan, Maul, and Warblade onto the scene. When it appears everything has been handled by Imp's team, he is taken hostage, but rescued by Zealot. Zealot explains the Daemonites will not stop until Jacob is dead. But then the Cabal's Coda assassin activates a bomb and blows up the strip joint with everyone in it as Hellspawn and Dan Quayle. Dan Quayle enjoy their next steps forward for Project Reunification and an assured Daemonite victory. Okay, so the explosion, I assume this explosion that occurs where it blows up this strip joint is the explosion that the people in the future of August 92 are seeing. So it's
right.
Okay. All right.
That's
so
what my impression was.
We got these weird time jumps going on.
Yeah, I'm not sure it all makes sense.
It definitely doesn't. They're starting with a very interesting story. I've got the gist of what's going on. It's kind of all over the place how we get there, but I'm wondering if there's going to be some type of time travel involved. I don't know if there is or not. Clearly, Void's able to traverse time in some way. I assume that's what she's doing. She's showing up. She may be all places all at once. I don't know. She's able to do some crazy stuff as she's going backwards in time and forwards in time, talking about this orb and doing all that. I mean, we really don't get much here other than our, again, introduction to our team. It's a team book. We got to get everybody, kind of give them their chance to kind of shine for a few. Hellspawn's a cool looking character. He is awesome.
I believe when I was looking up some stuff about him, he is a member of the same race as Photon from Youngblood.
Oh, really? Oh,
but
okay.
He's possessed by a Daemonite.
Interesting.
So that's why he looks a little different, which explains why he has the big, Wolverine type headpiece type going out of, and then the flames coming out of
blue flames.
Yeah.
Very
cool image.
Yeah, I like him as his look as a villain is really neat. We got these two warring races. Like there's the is the Caribum mentioned in this issue?
I think there is one or two mentions of them, but yeah, that's what the plot of Wildcats basically is the Daemonites are an alien race that are at war with the Caribum. Both of these races have been here for thousands of years, kind of battling, without the knowledge of the human race, knowing what's going on. But the Daemonites are the bad guys and the Caribum are the good guys.
Right. And obviously having Voodoo in on the team would help them. If she's able to see who they are, then she can help at least point the Wildcats in the right direction. Jim Lee art is the quintessential artist for Image Comics for me. Every character has a look that kind of feels right. It doesn't feel too extremely cartoony. It feels kind of, it's almost real. I can believe it,
Like Jim Lee is a guy it's kind of like a Mark Bagley, their styles aren't similar at all, really. But you look at somebody like Mark Bagley, George Perez, in the hands of somebody who's a little more exaggerated and more flashy. The proportions aren't quite the same, but like somebody like Jim Lee, Mark Bagley, George Perez, they're going to give you a more realistic look, like in a real world setting. Like, well, this is what that crazy character would look like, if they were a real person, basically.
Right. And it looks great. I mean, it looks fantastic.
Because, we see Jim Lee doing a lot of the Youngblood characters in Wildcats number 3 and 3 and 4 when they guest star in those issues. So we see his interpretation of some of the Liefeld characters, and they're a little more toned down, a little more proportion, more like, human, more like a normal human would be or whatever. But yeah.
The anatomy seems on point.
Yeah,
for sure. So I just found that panel that you were talking about that mentions the Cyberforce, where Marlowe says, "What a dream! Lightning faces, big goons, big guns. Got to lay off the spicy broads." Oh, Lord Imp.
The Wildcats miniseries is one that I've always I had the trade. I got the trade collection when I was younger for Wildcats and Savage Dragon. So those were trades that I would just read over and over and over again. I've read, the Wildcats miniseries so many times, and it still reads really well for me. It's just like, it seems like the perfect 90, what I would think of as the perfect 90s superhero movie. If they could have made a big budget superhero movie in the 90s, Wildcats would have been perfect for it.
Right, dude. And the plot of aliens, I think invading and taking over political positions. I mean, Dan Quayle, who I don't think it's disclosed in this that he is a Daemonite, but we find out that he is at some point, if I remember correctly.
I was going to bring up about Dan Quayle. He shows up in the last couple panels, and they're really trying to hit home like, hey, this is Dan Quayle, without actually saying it's Dan Quayle.
I know.
Because, when I was 11, 12 years old, I didn't know. I mean, I knew who Dan Quayle was. I knew he was the vice president. I probably knew what he looked like, but this didn't look like Dan Quayle to me. This is like another guy in a suit.
Right.
But they make sure to say he has a line, by comparison will be small potatoes, and they misspell potatoes in the word balloon.
Oh no!
As like an intentional reference to him misspelling it in a speech or something, whatever it was that happened with him.
That's hilarious.
And then he name checks his wife as well,
right?
To I guess, to give another hint, like, hey, this is Dan Quayle, guys. Hey, it's Vice President, guys.
Smiling at the camera right now. Last panel. It's Dan Quayle, ladies and gentlemen.
Marlowe mentions he's worth $2.5 billion when he's talking to one of his underlings. So I checked, and that is a little over $5 billion in 2022 dollars. So he's got lots of money.
Well, let's just hope he didn't invest in crypto, because they might be running up. Might be having a problem right now. All right.
I do like the Halo building. The design of that. It's basically a skyscraper with a halo on it, and that's cool addition to the New York skyline, because the Daily Planet, the Daily Bugle, those are kind of famous buildings in comics. So Jim Lee kind of giving his own spin on a famous on a skyscraper landmark for his Image universe, his corner of the Image universe.
Yeah, this just touches on the characters. We definitely don't get like I don't even think we learn about Maul being stupid in this, do we? Does that come up at all?
Just a quick reference where, when they bust through the wall,
that's right.
Maul throws Warblade through the wall. Warblade has a line that it says, Spartan says, "Explanation, Warblade, now." And Warblade's response is, "What's it look like, Coach? The boy's grown too big for his brain again."
That's right.
So that's kind of a reference to, like, the bigger he gets, the dumber he gets.
Yep.
This moment here with their fight spilling over into the hangar in the trade paperback for the miniseries came bagged with issue number 0.
Okay.
Of Wildcats number 0, which is a cool book, and it's got Brett Booth as the artist, and he's doing a real Jim Lee clone style art, so to try and make it look, line it up with these books. And we see more of Maul and Warblade in their training room, like fighting battle droids and stuff, and we see where their argument and fight starts out, and then it spills over here into this part, because the issue 0 kind of takes place concurrent with issue number 1, I think, if I remember right.
Always thought Pike had a cool looking. He definitely had a great appearance. This bad guy, it looks he's the mercenary type dude that looks very similar to Deadpool. I mean, listen. Just go ahead. If we ever have any other comics that have a character that's in black and red, just go ahead and put me down, because apparently that's what matters to me.
Right in your wheelhouse.
Right there. Let's go ahead and pick a panel here.
Okay. I'm gonna go with Grifter unloading on the guys in the war suits or whatever, where he's jumping around the table in the strip club and he's firing both of his guns, and there's that really cool sound effect with it's the sound of the guns going off, and they're kind of like trailing along with the guns, almost like it's a sound effect / special effect thing going. Yeah. I'm looking, before you even. When I think of Grifter, that's the image that comes to mind. him diving sideways, this very John Wick kind of looking thing. Yeah. 2-page Zealot dropping through. I'm gonna. Oh boy, I mean, Jim Lee could draw a lady. That is for sure. I'm gonna go with that. Zealot, even though she's late to the party, she shows up. She looks completely badass. She's got her katana and whatever in the world these things are that she can apparently detach from her back and either use or throw. She's very curvy, and she's in red. She's got that real short hair, which you didn't see too much. I mean, I'm sure that was around, but you didn't see too much of that. You didn't see too many ladies with with short white hair. Yeah. And she's not as common as the varied hairstyles we get today.
Right. When you think of the Wildcats, I think of her for some reason. She's like always like I would say she's probably number 1 when I think of that. So, there you go. There's my panel.
A couple quick notes. We talked earlier about how Silvestri and Jim Lee, it seemed like they weren't really bringing, as far as I know, characters from their past. Yeah, they were kind of like, well, we're both X-Men guys, let's just do team books similar to the X-Men. The Wildcats have the combat training room, which is kind of like their danger room. They have the Merv instead of the Blackbird. So more examples of them just kind of doing the same type of thing they were doing before, which is probably where some of the criticism comes from them, from the Image guys. We're just doing Marvel ripoffs, but like, I don't care because the books are fun and they look great. And also we get the Asian news reporter a couple times on some TV screens in this issue. Also showed up in the Spawn #1. Pretty sure she showed up in some Savage Dragon issues. They were using, that was another part of like the in continuity thing where in the early days they were kind of like sharing a lot of the same stuff. And then the meeting with Hellspawn on the sub, Hellspawn kind of implies that Jesus was a cherubim, maybe. Because he says he's talking about being betrayed or whatever, and he says, "Once upon a time, I paid a man 30 pieces of silver to betray his own mentor. How much did the gnome pay you, Alberto?" So yeah, that just a biblical reference there. Like, oh, so I guess he's saying Jesus was a cherubim. So.
Oh wow. Well, all right.
Yeah, that's all I got for Wildcats.
Thanks for joining us. Unspoken Issues is part of the UnspokenDecade.com, the home for 90s comics, blogs, and podcasts. Unspoken Issues also has a Facebook group you can join if you are interested. Just search the Unspoken Issues podcast and request to join. All of this would not be possible without W2Mnet.com and the Rattlich and Broadcasting Network, so make sure to seek them out for more podcasts. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please feel free to share, and we look forward to entertaining you again soon.